Hello listeners, we are your co-hosts Janine Bailey and Marie Quigley for the Empower World Coaching and Leadership Podcast. Empower World brings guests who are making a difference to the world to inspire coaches and leaders who lead with mind, heart and soul. Hello and welcome. My name is Janine Bailey and I'm the co-founder of the Coaching and Leadership Podcast along with my wonderful business partner, Marie Quigley. And she's not with me here today, but I am delighted to be able to be here with Neil Scotton, who is my very special guest speaker today. Welcome, Neil. Thank you for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here. Janine.
Fantastic, Neil. And just very quickly, I wanted to bring Neil onto the podcast with Empower World because I met Neil through a meeting or a series of workshops, actually, through the Climate Coaching Alliance last year. So it's a wonderful alliance that I've become a part of, which is the website is called coachingclimatealliance.org. So if you're interested in it, please do go and have a look. And it's been founded by three wonderful women who wanted to expand and increase the conversation around climate change and what we can do as coaches to support those climate change conversations. And of course, they invited Neil to come along and introduce what is known as Neil's Wheel, which is a wonderful and simple tool, yet powerful tool that enables us as coaches to work with clients to have actually really rich and deep and meaningful conversations that allows us or our clients to recognize, what's important here, what's really important here. So I was very intrigued and wanted to meet Neil. And so I'm so delighted, Neil, that you said yes to doing this podcast. And Neil is in the UK early morning and I'm in Australia at the moment in my early evening. So Neil, over to you. I'd love you to introduce yourself to our guests.
My name's Neil Scotton, living in England, just south of London. I'm a father, recently became a grandfather in the autumn, and I've been full-time coaching since 2004. Previous to that was a life predominantly in engineering, manufacturing, consulting and things. And love walking, growing veggies, turning the garden slowly into a garden that we can eat and that the wildlife can eat as well, and have an allotment and play a guitar, do Tai Chi, and me.
Sounds like a wonderful life, Neil.
I'm very lucky. I mean, just diving perhaps quite deep. I had a major illness way back in 2002 and near death, last goodbyes to my wife and children and parents. And one of the things out of that was that coming back, what an amazing gift this life is. And it left me with a few things, such as trying to leave all my relationships in a place that if I need to check out in a hurry, there's nothing left unsaid with anybody. And also just to make the most of this amazing gift we've got of life. What an incredible thing it is. What an incredible thing to be alive at the end of the 20th and beginning of the 21st century. With whilst there's still clearly so much for us to do, we have so many freedoms compared to so many of our forebears, ancestors. We are able to do so much. So many more people are able to speak and have agency than ever had before. So, in many ways, it's a great time to be alive. There's no shortage of challenges, of course, with COVID and economic situations and lots of fears for the future. But there are a lot of reasons to enjoy being alive as well.
Yeah. Beautifully shared, Neil. I didn't know that about yourself, and what a gift that you're still here doing the work that you do. And it's really it touches my heart to hear that. And I totally agree with you that we've just got this one life that we know of anyway. So let's make the most of it. Let's make the most of it. And it reminds me of something that I was listening to in my car today. It was called an audiobook, The One Thing. And the author mentions a song, It's My Life. And I thought he meant It's My Life by Bon Jovi. So I listened to it and I just thought, oh yes, it's, the words really say It's my life, and let's make something of it. Let's do something amazing. Let's be heard. Let's have a voice. So, yeah, it wasn't the song that he meant, but still, it resonated with me. So.
There's a line I often quote from John Bon Jovi as well. I think it's the Lost Highway album. In my rearview mirror, my life is getting clearer. Yeah, that resonates as well, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we can do so much in this life. We can either be complacent, or we can be proactive and do something meaningful. And again, what I'm hearing from you, Neil, is some great work that you've been doing. I know that you're making an impact across the world, traveling across the world via Zoom. So this Neil's Wheel, could you share a little bit more about what Neil's Wheel is about for our listeners, and potentially how coaches could start to use it? Because I know it's downloadable.
Yeah.
And people are interested. So I'd love to hear more about your wonderful wheel.
Okay. It's really, really simple. So it's simply a circle divided into 8 parts. 7 of those parts have some words attached to them. The last one is blank. So you touch on financial and human and environment. And as I mentioned, these part of the freedom of this is that it's left for people to interpret what these mean for themselves. But those 3 came from the work of a guy called John Elkington, who was talking about people, profits, and planet, and how interrelated these are, and how they're all part of responsible leadership, which I completely understood and makes sense to me. What goes on in the environment affects the finances and affects people clearly. What people do affects the environment. And it's our financial system at the end of the day, and what's going on in the finances clearly affects people's behaviours and choices, and therefore what we do or don't do with the environment as well. So all of these are kind of dancing with each other as well as dancing with themselves. The environment is a big dance between what's going on in the sky and the land and the water and all these sorts of things, and what's going on with people we're seeing in terms of ideas flowing and people flowing and everything else, and where the money is. So all these things are kind of in flowing connected. And a lot of leaders at the time, this is going back into the early 2000s, actually my connection to the environment goes back way before that, but anyway, people got it, but very few people were doing anything about it. And it also struck me that people actually did care in some way. So there was an opportunity here. So going around the wheel, there's other words there about legacy. So one of the things that was a criticism at times, a lot of short-termism, when we start thinking about our legacy, it changes our perspective to a greater period in time. When we look back, what do we want our legacy to be? When other people look at us, what will they see our legacy as being? And it also changes our perspective. So we're not just seeing it from our own self-centered eyes, but from the eyes of others. What will our children say? And our communities and our work colleagues and other such, And for me, people who never met me, but may in some way, lives hopefully being affected for the better in some sort of way. And they may not know exactly how, and it doesn't really matter. But that's that legacy. So it's stretching out in time. And for some people, legacy also means the legacy that they inherit. So it could be a cultural legacy. It could be a sense of responsibility that's been passed down to them, and they're going to pass on to others to look after the land and the people around them and generations and things. And then what was also in the coaching, as I was doing the coaching, was clear that it has to touch us more deeply as well. So the wheel also invites us to think about values and calling and meaning and purpose. And what do these things mean to you? And how do they speak to you in some sort of way? And that can also, in some ways, for some people be heartfelt, but for some can also stay very heady. So how do we get really into things? So another one is around whole life fulfillment. And that invites us to think of our whole life in terms of all the different parts of us and the hats we wear. So, as I mentioned, I'm here as a professional. I'm here also as a father, as a citizen, as a member of the community, with many hats that I'm wearing in various guises. And we all have potentially several hats. So the whole of my life, and also the whole of my life from beginning to end. For some people, that's a physical beginning, physical end. For other people, life begins before the physical and ends, or carries on beyond the physical death. So whatever, the faith system that you work in, that's fine for this. So looking at whole life and then fulfillment. Actually, are you fulfilled? And all of these things have more than I'm sharing here, because I could probably speak a book about it. But a lot of that was triggered from the works of the positive psychology and Martin Seligman, where he was looking for authentic happiness, and then actually realized that happiness is a bit flim-flam, I suppose, in a way. There's something deeper. And so the sense of fulfillment is not simply being happy, but actually, do I have peace of mind? Do I have peace of soul? Do I feel deeply inside fulfilled? And then the seventh element is around enabling the greatness in others. In our work with people that were making extraordinary differences in the world, amazing people, but there's two things that can easily fall into, which, if we're going to stereotype, the messianic and martyrdom. The messianic being, I've got to do this, I'm the only person that can do this, if I don't do this, other people are going to be suffering type situation. And then the martyrdom, because we become so committed to it that we can exhaust ourselves. We can wear ourselves out. We can actually become resentful of the very thing that we started and we cared so much deeply about. And we can get into a situation where we don't enjoy ourselves, because how could I possibly have fun when other people are suffering or missing out and things like this? And I wouldn't think those other people will wish you to stop enjoying yourself to some degree. But anyway, these are the sort of challenges. But so enabling greatness in others means it's not just about us. Yeah. And it's about having a tool that you could put on the table as easy as the wheel of life, which is a great tool. Mm-hmm. But where the wheel of life looks at my career and my money and my health, this is about recognizing we live in an interdependent world. So those first three dimensions, the finances, the environment, and the human, the invitation to look out beyond ourselves there. What's happening out in the world? So environments, maybe what's happening in, for places and animals and things, perhaps locally, perhaps nationally, perhaps internationally, perhaps out in the future, whatever that may be. It could be landscapes, it could be marine environments, whatever it may be. For some people, it's also about the emotional environment, or the work environment, or the built environment, and those also are important. For the human, when you think out into the world, what are the lives and the people who in some way connect with you that you are touched by, even if you don't know them? And again, it may be an age group, the young or the old. It could be people in a particular situation, that are going through transition, or homeless, or are ill in some sort of way, or indeed are supporting people who are, doing great, who are healthy, or it may be professions, in terms of, I work with, healthcare professionals or educationalists or whatever it may be, or indigenous peoples or whatever it may be. So what's true for yourself around that? And the finances, where does the money go? Where is it invested? Where is your money going? What happens when it goes out into the world? That side of things. So it's about looking. It's like where we put the wheel of life on the table. We don't ask people, do you want to talk about your money and your health and environment and all those sorts of things? Because people see it and get it. The same thing happens here. People see it and get it. But it opens up this bigger conversation. And the last section is whatever you want it to be, so it completes it for you. That leads to that sense of wholeness, that you are fully expressed here. So the way it then works is you bring all of yourself, these different parts of myself, to it. I can express myself with it in various ways. Some people like scores. Where am I now? Where do I want to be? For some people, they draw on it. Some people just make notes or write on it. For some people, it's just a felt sense. There's nothing there at all, but they just literally touch into it or feel into it. For me, it is. Does this wheel feel in balance? Does it sound right? Is it in tune? Is it in harmony? Does it ring true? So it's these sorts of things. So people can express it in any way they fancy. There's no path. You begin where you want to begin. You end where you want to end. And where you go in between is entirely up to you. What those headings means are entirely up to you. Because coaches often get caught up in the, how can I do this? But it's the client's agenda. Well, they're deciding what these words mean. They're deciding what they're going to talk about. They're deciding how they express themselves. They're deciding what they're not going to talk about. They decide where they start. They decide where they finish. It's all them. But as I found yesterday, I was sharing this with coaches in Germany, coaching community in Germany. Within minutes with somebody I was sharing it with, it was getting very deep and profound in terms of their legacy, their values, their faith systems, and all these sorts of things. And a lot of coaches say it's enabling the conversations they've always wanted to have. Mm. It's let's get real. What do you really want to be talking about in these sorts of areas? And it can be challenging in terms of a lot of what you were sharing here at the beginning was around the environmental side. So a lot of people who are involved in the environment really love it, find it very, very useful. And they come in thinking it's about having a conversation around the environment section. But I was speaking with someone that cares deeply about it just a couple of days ago. And what they began to realize is that all of these relate to the environment. What people do relates to the environment. The financial systems relate to the environment. Our sense of legacy and, 7 generations and things, it relates to the environment. Our values and things. If we say we care about it, well, what are we doing about it? What's your relationship with the environment in terms of fulfillment? Well, when I'm in it, I feel very fulfilled. When I nurture it, I feel fulfilled. Enabling greatness in others. Actually, people feel greater when they are healthy and out in that sort of environment. It's about sparking projects and initiatives into life, or supporting people who are doing things, that are making a difference out there in the world and enabling their greatness, and whatever you put in the blank section often has a relationship as well. And that's one of the big things for me, is around the sense of trying to get this sense of interconnectedness, of oneness, as some people describe it. You can write big long books about it, and there's no shortage of 1,000-year-old philosophies about it, but it's actually really hard to describe. But when people do the wheel, they suddenly go, oh, hang on, that's connected to that, that's connected to that. Because my belief is, inside we get oneness. We understand that someone else's suffering actually does affect me. It's not just a news story. I am affected by it. We are connected. COVID is telling us how connected we are. The person next to me, is their safety affects my safety. Their health affects my health. Their sense of security affects my sense of security, and vice versa. Where my food comes on relies on hundreds of people, often from all around the world, being healthy, being enabled, working really, really well. Otherwise, I can't be. This whole sense, I was really moved by the likes of Gregory Bateson, where he was saying that success is not an individual thing. You don't want to succeed as an individual. It's not even a team. It's not even a national thing. Yeah. We succeed and are healthy because others around us are succeeding and healthy. And I think that's a growing awareness as part of the zeitgeist at the moment. COVID is showing how we are all in this together. And the wheel, I think, just helps people, that's why I feel. And suddenly, the conversation gets deeper and wider, but often within minutes. It's lovely when I do this and share it with the world because quite often what we do is I just introduce people to it and say, spend 5 or 10 minutes with it, and then people go into breakout rooms in pairs. And after 10 minutes conversation, people are coming out almost like best friends. They've had conversations in a way that they haven't had with people they've known for years. And they're all saying, can we stay in touch? Well, of course you can. Put it in the chat or whatever, and away you go. So, anyway, hopefully that explains something.
A beautiful explanation. Thank you so much, Neil. And yes, that's why I'm here with you right now, because of exactly that. That fantastic experience I had in one of your workshops, or 2 of your workshops last year during COVID, and COVID enabled this to happen. So. But as you were explaining that, the Neil's Wheel, interconnectedness, oneness, they were the words that kept coming to me as you were sharing. And I truly believe this is a powerful tool that, yes, can support us to come out of perhaps our smaller world. I can't think of a better word, but the world that we look into and look out. But yet it also impacts us inside as well, as we look out and realize and recognize all of those connections. So, yeah.
And it may be worth all sharing as well, for people to think, is it okay to use it? It's now being used across North America, Europe, India, Malaysia, Philippines, Australasia, and all around the world. It's been used, I've seen a couple of weeks ago, being used with Indigenous First Nations people, teenagers. So it goes from teenagers. It's being used in the health service and people in hospice type environments at the end of life. So it's really covering all of life. Every gender, colour, sexuality, faith system, political stripe. And what's really curious, I'm sure it will happen, but so far I've yet to hear of an argument, because when people speak at this level, it reveals that most people are good people. They care about their children. They want their children to have a healthy, happy future. The argument could be in the detail, but the principle of, do you want a fairer world? Yes. Do you want to be doing good work? Yes. Do you want your life to be seen to be respected and, having made a positive difference to people? Yes. When we connect to that sort of level, people just really get to hear each other in extraordinary ways. And it's really, really interesting. It's really interesting. One of the principles that was within it was, I noticed as a coach, change was happening very quickly, because there was no conflict. It wasn't as though we were debating or arguing in any way. The coaching worked because you're asking questions and inviting people to put their own thinking together. And the key thing about the wheel is not telling people what to think, but it's simply inviting them to think. And coaching does a lot of that as well. So if there's any conflict, it's just within the parts of the person. Well, part of me wants to do this and part of me wants to do that. But you're with them as they resolve that within themselves. And I think that's part of the reason why the wheel seems to work, is that it's not anyone trying to advocate a particular view on the environment or financial systems or how society works or reasons why we've got the conflicts or whatever we've got at the moment. It's simply it goes around all of that and into a much deeper sense of as human beings, we get this interconnectedness. We care for each other ultimately. Ultimately, we're collaborative creatures. We like to work with each other and we like to help each other. And we like to thrive. We like to be cared for and we like to care. And it's getting into that sense of things, really. And at that point, somehow everyone just meets, regardless of their age, regardless of their colour, regardless of their gender or sexuality. They go, oh, okay, I get it. I get you now.
Yeah. It's such a powerful tool, and it really, I believe, wakes people up. and and I certainly have some intentions for the tool with some of the charity work that I'm involved in, and some of the paid work that I'm also involved in as well. I work with Indigenous, and I'm also doing some charitable work in terms of the environment, because I'm aware that my land is potentially going to be, if we don't do something drastic about climate change, my land is not going to be my land anymore. It'll be undersea. So, and I really truly believe that this wheel is going to be able to, again, open up awareness, open up minds, open up hearts, and as you say, Neil, bring that connection together. Let barriers fall down. Let's do this together. Let's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think within that, perhaps given the time scales here, let's make this one of the closing things here. Often in this sort of theme at the moment, there's this sense of let's save the world. And for many people, that can seem huge. And in some ways can actually then lead to feeling hopeless and helpless as well. And what this really is about is enabling everyone to find their piece of the puzzle. So I use this metaphor, you find your piece of the puzzle. And it's like we've lost the lid of the box. Nobody really knows what the whole picture looks like. But it's about finding the bits that connect with your bits. And your bit may be blue and somebody's bit may be yellow and somebody's may be red. And that doesn't make a difference because your bit may be the sky and maybe a bit of somebody's T-shirt and somebody's whatever the picture of the box is. Yeah. And within that context, it empowers them. Everyone has a part to play. You don't have to do it all. You just have to find the bits that connect around you, connect with those people or those themes or that work, which really is what is calling you in some sort of way, which matters to you, that makes a difference to you, that you can do something about. And that may be enormous with a global reach, but it may just be helping your neighbour. It may just be tending for a few square yards of an urban landscape. Yeah. And that's okay. You don't have to all change the world, because that bit of changing the landscape, a child may walk by and notice that's a difference, and that may inspire them to go and do something else later on or whatever it is. Or it may give somebody a bit of chill out space so they don't go and do something they're going to regret, or whatever it may be. That in itself can be life-changing. So don't diminish things because of the sense of scale. Let's not get caught up with some sense that we've all got to come up with a bigger story about how many lives have been affected or whatever it may be. That's not what this is about. Do the bit that is calling you, and that'll be okay. When you tune into yourself, you know what that is. Don't let anyone else tell.
Yes, exactly. And I'm glad you shared that, Neil. I think that is so important, because I potentially did carry a lot more responsibility on my shoulders in the past. But I recognise that I can play my small part, which potentially has a ripple effect that keeps rippling out and creating a wave of change. So it's so true. We've just got to do what we can do, and know that that's going to somehow make a difference.
Yeah, often the small things are the big things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm aware that you perhaps have to zoom across the world somewhere right now, Neil, and continue that ripple effect that you're creating through the work that you're doing, the great work that you're doing. In fact, I heard about you mentioned the Indigenous children. I heard about that through one of the participants that was on the ICF Australasia, not ICF Australasia, the CCA Australasia meeting, which had someone from Canada join us and share about Neil's Wheel. So it's wonderful to hear the impact across the ripples across the world. So thank you for doing what you do.
It's lovely. I'll probably say therefore that if anyone's listening to this, and still here, thank you for listening all this way through. It's all at neilswheel.org. It's all free. If you're a coach, it's designed to be client friendly. So if you like it, you just say to your client, if you wish, go and have a look. If you like the idea of that, we'll have a conversation about it. So there's all you need. There's all the resources and everything else there. And if you're a coach that wants to play and practice first and get more experience around it and just feel more integrity around, I've done it myself before, I'm introducing to others, there's a Just for Coaches page. And that's where we actually just generate a little bit of income, which keeps the whole thing going. But it's where you go on a sort of 6-week journey with peers and you practice, you co-coach, and you ask questions, how do I integrate it in my practice? How do I bring it to people and things like this? And we just do that as an international kind of cohort of coaches. So if anyone's interested in that, it's there.
And what would be the website that people could find you on?
Neilswheel.org. If you Google Neil's Wheel, you're going to end up with a bicycle company, a taxi company, or this. So you're probably going to find it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again, Neil. Have a beautiful day, and thank you so much again for being with us. And I look forward to connecting with you somehow, some way in another time.
That'll be great. And then if anyone's heard this and they use it, please share their stories with us as well. I'm easy to Google. So, yeah, it's always lovely to hear what's going on in people's world. Thank you, Janine. All the best with all the work that you were doing here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Neil.
Thanks for listening. You can find out more about us on our website, www.empower-world.com, and on our social media networks, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Be empowered.